It's December 28th, 2025. And I thought I'd just make this recording. This is going to be on Aquarius and the age of Aquarius and some of the dynamics we're looking at over the next 15 plus years. Um, so I just thought I would go over this because I hear a lot of stuff, and you know, sadly, a lot of times on the internet, astrology is very generalized, very weak, and therefore it becomes really ineffective when you don't get down to the detail. Astrology is very detailed. It's not just stated in a couple words, and so that always becomes an issue here on the internet because everything's about little short memes, little phrases, as though it contains the meaning of something. And really, it just contains such a small fragment. And that's actually one of the things that we're going to look at here in Aquarius, what it's about. So, Aquarius, when you deal with the meaning of the sign, you really want to look at the planets that are its rulership. And what you have here is the traditional ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. And Saturn is really about a certain kind of structure and boundary. It's when you go into a lot of the meaning of Saturn, it's like, what is my role? What is my function? How do I function in the world? And so it's a lot about defining the self. And oftentimes when we're trying to define the self, we're comparing ourselves to others. We're doing a lot of that kind of activity, and we're self-judging, we're judging others. So it has typically a sort of harsher dynamic to it, is what you'll see with Saturn. There's a real limitation getting to, in a sense, the truth of something. But when you're looking at and you're pointing it onto yourself, trying to find the truth, it's not an easy process. As we all know, being who we are, there is a lot of struggle and just different trying things that go on. So with this rulership, you also have the Uranus rulership. And Uranus is this freedom expressing planet and dynamic. It's a revolutionary, oftentimes it's called. It's spontaneous, very liberating. And so with Aquarius, what I do is you look at the merging of these two specific dynamics, this structured core with a free flowing expression. And so Aquarius is the tension in this field where Saturn structures and Uranus liberation are fused, building a social order that can hold real individuality, right? As an airfield, it operates through the mind. So there is a signal, a language, there's networks that go on here, shared ideas. It changes people by changing the pattern of connection between them, all right? It's called the water bearer, Aquarius is, because it doesn't become the water, it carries and distributes the living water of truth, as it were, or insight and life current, pouring them into the collective as a whole system, and that can be nourished and upgraded. All right, so it isn't the water itself, but it carries that. It forms a structure. Again, very Saturnian in the nature of its structure, but it forms a structure of individuation, of lifting up the individual. In this fusion, Saturn really, again, is the visible ruler, the public frame, law, boundary, accountability, cohesion, the container that keeps the group from dissolving. Uranus is the invisible ruler, the hidden distributor, the lightning revelation, as it were, and the deconditioning of the old Saturn scripts and forces basically reform. Saturn measures the rules of belonging. Uranus shocks them open when they become shame, stagnation, or herd control. So what ends up happening is, over time, anything that's fixed tends to get harder and stiffer. You know, it's sort of like the idea of age. Age ages you. You get a little stiffer, a little bit harder. You're not as nimble as a baby. I mean, my grandchildren have no problem lifting their foot into their mouth. That's not a problem at all. And I may put my foot in my mouth, but not literally, okay? Trying to get my foot up to my mouth, that's really not going to happen. I'm older. It's just, it doesn't work that way anymore. So this is part of the idea of age. And this is kind of where Saturn represents things that are reliable. They're not going to move. Okay. That's a good thing. But sometimes not being able to move is not a good thing. So it just depends on where it's applied. So you want to have a system that works, but you also need it to be flexible enough to let unconditioned self exist, to let the unique individual exist. One of the things I think we see in the world today oftentimes, and you'll hear that from people working in corporate America, is that they're not allowed really to express their individuality, or it's in extremely limited ways, because there is a system in place, there are rules to follow, and you need to do it this way. You need to answer things this way. I don't know if you've ever been, well, I do know that you've been called by, the ones soliciting work, those callers, and they call with the same lines. They'll say the exact same thing. And this is just a prepared line. There's no actual uniqueness. Oh, how is your day going today? That's not genuine. That's all just fake. They're just reading a line. They don't care. They're reading a line. And you tend to know that, which creates a disconnect, because you're not actually talking to the person. You're talking to what they're told to say. And that has been growing greater and greater and greater. And we see why. Well, people don't want lawsuits. And what are lawsuits? They're a Saturnian thing. Okay, so Uranus gets you in trouble with Saturn. That's kind of what it does. But Aquarius is the combining of the two. Why? Because they need to be combined. Otherwise, you're just going to kill everybody with Saturn. You're going to kill everybody with laws and rules. You're going to crush the uniqueness out of them. Where Uranus is about that uniqueness, about that life. And yet it can be very chaotic in that sense. Uncontrollable. So this is where Aquarius plays. The clean Aquarian. All right, so what does that look like in today's world? It builds future steady structures. Clear rules, but chosen, minimal, upgradable. So it has rules, but they're limited. They're upgradable. This is part of the idea of how it's blended. It honors differences without losing cohesion. It's the individual in the group. This is one of the things of Aquarius. It's about the individual, not outside the group, but within the group. All right? It's truth over tribe. And so what it is it still seeks after that which is true, not just being tribal. Well, this is the way my group thinks, so that's the way I'm going to say it is. Even though I question maybe that's not exactly factual. So reforms institutions and networks so they serve life, not ego or the group ego. So what that means is this, that if it really isn't serving what it's there for, then we need to change it. We don't just support it because, well, that's what our group supports. So I'm supporting that. You can take healthcare, like massive topic in America. I don't think anybody thinks healthcare works. Our present system. I don't think anybody. It hasn't worked for a long time. A lot of money gets shoved into it. Ineffective. All right. Could it be made more effective? Well, I think anything can be made more effective. Does it need to be made more effective? Well, of course it needs to be made more effective. All right. Now, what gets in the way? Group ego gets in the way. Our group is going to be the one to fix it. And we're not letting anybody else fix it. No, our groups get... So it's like, oh my God. You get all these group egos, sometimes individual egos, that all get in the way of the collective. All right. The total collective. So one of the things with Aquarius, it pushes past all that. There is rational, inventive, principled. innovative, and accountability. These are all about Aquarius. There's a rationalness. It's an air sign, all right? It's inventive. It has a uniqueness. It has a, let's bring something new and fresh. It's principled. Again, it's air. So it's dealing with the intellect. It's not just wishful thinking. There's an innovation involved in it. Again, it wants to take what's there, but how do we improve it? How can we make it better? And finally, accountability. It's not going to just be wishful thinking and pie in the sky, and we're just going to push it forward no matter what, even though it doesn't make sense. There is accountability to the group. It's the individual within the group. All right. So these are all clean expressions of the energy. Now, shadow expressions of this Aquarius is rebellion as identity. So this is about breaking structure without replacing it. I'm a rebel. I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. I'm just going to do my own thing. And so I'll go in, destroy, without any idea of how we can make the group cohesive. We just want to divide the group all up, bring a chaotic element and survival of the fittest. If you can make it, great. If not, whatever. And it has a real rebel nature without any purpose. It's just rebellion for the sake of rebellion. Freedom that becomes social chaos. So it's like, hey, everybody be free, do your own thing, do whatever, you know, and it just becomes chaotic. There's nothing you can rely on then. It's sort of like, hey, we want freedom. I'm not going to follow any traffic laws. So therefore going to the store becomes a whole tension. You don't know if people are going to stop at the stoplight or the stop sign. They're not following rules. They're just doing whatever. And that just becomes an issue of you have nothing to trust, nothing to rely on. I mean, rules have a place, all right, in a society. You want to be able to have a certain level of expectation. And yet you don't want it to be so controlled that you limit creative individuality or freedoms. So there is detachment. So again, a shadow element of Aquarius, when it goes into this sort of shadow form, becomes very detached. It really relies more on that Uranus than the Saturn. And so that's what you kind of see, like it can go either way. In the shadow form, you're going to have one element expressing, not both, okay? So the dehumanization and ideology. So you dehumanize people and make it an idea. So ideology is, I have a concept about something and I think it should work, even though it's never been tested with actual humans. You know, it sounds good in your head, but then when you go to play it out, it doesn't really work. These are ideologies, or, you know, I sort of like the old biblical word for ideology, which is the idols and the worship of idols. It's the idea of a concept of your mind that you move towards without any reality to it. Like you have not tested it all. That's why the concept of a faith life is you have to test it. You have to see, does it work? You don't just blindly do stuff. You have to test it. That's really a concept of faith, where again, ideology could be, I'm going to test it on the people I'm telling what to do. Not always the best idea. We've seen a lot of ideologies that massively fail and create total disaster in societies. Again, that is an element of Aquarius. So, groupthink, this is another shadow form. Groupthink disguised as progress. All right, so if I can get everybody to agree, and then we'll push forward. And if there's any dissenters, I will humiliate, I'll do whatever it takes to bring that down, because this is the way we think. Groupthink is never good. You want people to individually think and come up with their own decision, not be pressured into it. That becomes really destructive, and it's opposed really ultimately to what true Aquarius expression is. That's more of a Saturnian, these are the rules, just think this way. You know, again, we see that a lot in society. You'll see a lot of it in religious settings. You'll see a lot of it in today's political settings, are very groupthink based. Where again, it's just, you have to think this way. You cannot question it at all. The tribe becomes the new Saturn. It becomes the new standard. My church becomes the standard. It holds the truth. My political party holds the truth. Everybody else is liars if they don't agree with my thing. This is what, again, that can be a very Aquarian shadow side. And finally, there's coldness. There's concepts over people. This is where I'm going to believe a concept. Again, you see this a lot of times in religious and political settings. They'll have a belief, but it's like they're not applying it to people. You can think one thing, okay? So you can consider, and you have an ideology or a concept that uh, uh, abortion is the murder of a baby, and that's absolutely wrong. And then you're going to treat that person in that way, like in a really negative, vile way. And that, again, that's taking a belief and a concept, what you believe in your head, and then using it as an excuse to, in a sense, be cruel or judgmental to a person. And we see that, again, religious settings. You can have a belief that drawing the picture or creating any kind of image of Muhammad is a vile thing. That can be a concept or a belief of yours. But now using that as an excuse to murder or to do something harmful to another person, that's a problem. Okay? And that's, again, that's seen in the shadow side of Aquarius. Belonging over truth. All right? If this is the way my group thinks, this is the way I think, period. I don't care what the facts say. I don't care about actual truth. I care about my group and what it does. Again, shadow side. Finally, really, Aquarius is to liberate from old conditioning, then build a new container that can hold the liberated self and still serve the whole. All right, what does that mean? So the container or the conditioning is, there's a passage in the scripture that says this: you can't put new wine into old wineskins. All right, and what it was you would take a skin, you would pour the grape juice in, it would ferment, it would grow, it would expand the container and grow hard. And then when you drank the wine, you would pour it out. All right, but now the skin has become hard. If you were to put new wine in that and it would go through the whole fermentation process, it would begin to expand. When it is no longer a skin that is movable, it has become stiff. There's nothing wrong, in a sense, with the skin being stiff when it was holding that which the original wine. Okay, it held it. You could place it in places. You could pour out when you wanted it. But now the idea of putting new wine in there, you can't do that anymore because it will break and burst the skin. This is the whole concept within Aquarius. Containers are not bad. Laws in and of themselves are not bad. They help to understand how the rules of getting along, the rules of how a society are going to be together. Because I'm not the same as you, you're not the same as me. We're going to see things differently. So we agree to a certain set of rules as we interact so that we don't get that confused. Okay? That's what it is. It's a joint set of rules. You have your own beliefs individually. Great. I have my beliefs individually, but we also have a collective set of beliefs. We have a collective set of forms that we're agreeing to. And the reality is, over time, those need to be re-looked at, re-examined, and changed. That's the reality. That is the Aquarian dynamic, all right, that we go through. So you take this, and so you're liberated from old conditioning and build a new container that the liberated self will serve the whole. All right, it's not a matter of eliminating. We need to eliminate all the conditioning and just get rid of it altogether and then go from there. No, you eliminate and replace. Okay, we're not at a place in our development. I don't care how evolved you think you are. We are not at a place where we can just abandon all rules. That's not where we are. Okay, so we still need to have a set of agreements of how we're going to get along. And so that's the idea. It is both, Aquarius is both Saturn, rules, and the liberation, the individual expression of the self. And so what it does is it says that ever so often you have to update this. You have to get a new wineskin. You have to get a new form that we're going to use. All right. And that, in essence, when you deal with the age of Aquarius, that's what we're moving into. We're beginning this new set of rules, okay, in a long scale, 2,000-year process, okay? But we also have Pluto in Aquarius, which is every approximately 256 years, that you really have to re-examine how we're doing community life. I mean, the last time we were here was the Declaration of Independence. It was the Bill of Rights and these kind of things that were happening. We were establishing America. You know, this was a new way of being from what had been the English way. And now we were going to do things in a new way. Well, we're back again. We're doing that again. We're wanting to reestablish the rules, okay, and how this is going to be. So, again, in that frame, we're looking at from approximately 2023 is when it dipped in, but mainly 2024. We actually moved Pluto into Aquarius, and we'll be here till 2044. So we've got a long way. We've just finished Pluto in Capricorn. Now we're moving Pluto in Aquarius, which is really the rebirth of the network, is kind of what you're looking at here. We're now entering a 20-year cycle that will fundamentally reshape the architecture of society. And not just American society, this is a global thing. Pluto, the planet of profound transformation, has moved into Aquarius, the sign of the collective mind. Its networks, its innovation, its the delicate balance between the individual and the whole. This transit represents not merely technical progress, but a deep structural evolution in how human genius is organized, how our uniqueness, how our specialness is all organized. Okay, so this is where we're moving into now. You're dealing with, and okay, so one of the things with Pluto, when you deal with what Pluto is, Pluto exposes and transforms. It sort of has a death rebirth. I like to use the example of the sword. So Pluto is like the sword that goes into the ground, all right? And that it moves the ground enough where a seed can be planted. So Pluto has that imagery. In the religious sphere, it is the Roman soldier that pierces the side of Jesus, and it says that the seed must die. So again, conceptually, you're dealing with that kind of a concept. The opening of ground, the piercing of it. So there is an element of pain involved because you need to plant the seed. You need to let that thing in there so that it can begin to grow. Okay? So that's one of the things that begins to happen, is that there is that piercing, which really most likely was taking place a lot of times with the Pluto in Capricorn, that there's a pain involved there. But what we're going through is this evolutionary shift from soul builder to network specialist, as it were. The old paradigm, or Saturn's shadow, is the soul builder model. Here, the individual is pressured to know everything: foundation, framing, plumbing. Dealing from a construction point of view, you have to do everything in construction. Okay, you have to know how to do every part. And you know what? In a lot of the old world, that's the way it was. A builder knew how to do everything within a building. Anymore, if you take our modern world, we have the contractor and the subcontractors. The subcontractors really are all specialized. They do specialized parts, all right? Being an Aquarian nation, as the United States is, we're very kind of much into that. So here the individual, again, is pressured to know everything, to know every aspect of the building. How to do proper plumbing, electrical, framing, sheetrock painting, cabinetry finishing, everything. So the Aquarian integration really takes on this general contractor, subcontractor model. Each person masters a craft. That's the Uranus part. Each person is a master of their unique craft. And then there is the system functions as the intelligent and the dynamicsing sequence, which is Saturn. Saturn sort of plays the general contractor, which sequence things, brings things in their proper order. You don't want to have a fresh land, you're going to build a house and you want the sheetrock out there. They're good at their stuff, but that's not the proper time for them. That's why Saturn has a hierarchical order. I know nowadays hierarchy becomes a negative word, but hierarchy deals with the order of things. And there is an order to things. You know, you may question the old order, no problem. A lot of need to question the old order. But to say we want no order, that's not really good. That's like saying, okay, we've always had general contractors. We're not going to use them anymore. We're just going to go sub, and you guys do your thing. And like, okay, well, I'm doing my thing now. No, there is an order to things. So, again, and that's Saturn. Saturn has the structure, the order, the hierarchy, where Uranus has the innovation, the individuality, and sort of disruption. So what I mean, how can disruption be good? Well, disruption's good because when you're building and you go to the land, you have to disrupt the land. You have to dig into it. You're going to pour a foundation. That's disruption. That also can be called violence. You know, you have to do violence to the land. You have to dig in, all right? So you're breaking it apart. Pluto then will expose and transform. Pluto brings death and rebirth. Systems that are outdated, they're extractive or built on false collectives. So, and I don't really mean false collectives. Like, systems are built to be effective at the time. They just will grow old and be ineffective. They will no longer serve the needs of the people. Even though maybe initially they did serve the needs perfectly? No. Okay, we're not looking at building a perfect system. That's not the way it works. You know, perfectly is everybody is running their life in complete order as it should be, and then we wouldn't need any outer order, okay, if everybody ran their life. But that means you have to run your life perfectly. So the minute we're all running our lives perfectly, then we could do it. But yeah, I'm not there. So just because I'm not there, we can't do it. That's the reality, because everybody has to be on that page. All right. So, you know, what does this look like? Well, you see key domains of change. That's what's really going to be looking at over the next 20 years. Work, economy, the decline really of the monolithic corporations replaced by fluid guilds, project-based networks, artisan economies where specialists contribute their mastery without sacrificing sovereignty. You have technology, the end of closed platforms, the rise of a inner sort of inner platform protocols where tools communicate openly and users control their own data, identity, creative output, these kind of concepts we should see play out. Governance, a shift from the top-down control towards network subsidies, local and specialized groups handling what they know best within a framework of shared principles. What you're dealing with is whenever you have these sort of large-scale corporations or large-scale government, they don't know what's happening on the ground. Anything that gets too big, one, change is really hard for anything that's too big. Two, they lose control at the ground level. They really don't know, and you have a lot of inefficiencies. The best way to do it is to have a much, you know, a lower sort of base, so that you have literally people that are making decisions on the ground. That's the most effective way of dealing. Large scale, sort of the higher management deal with the larger picture. Downscale, again, control is on the ground. That becomes really important, you know. And so these are some of the things that we would be looking at over the years. Really, the highest expression of Pluto in Aquarius is a society that understands that networks exist to amplify sovereign individuals, not to absorb them. We're not looking to all be like an Amazon, and that Amazon is really the company of the future, where you take a company that does all this. It's like everything runs through Amazon. No, that never works. That will always collapse. It always causes problems. So basically Amazon will fail. That's for sure. It will fail, because it cannot sustain. That's why we would break monopolies up. That's why we would do these things, because we need more control at the ground level and less at the top. Now, they may be able to find a way to bring that about, But that's what you're going to deal with. It's we have to have control at the ground level. We lose what we lose. You can take, let's say, a Home Depot. Home Depot replaced the lumber yard. It replaced the that whole dynamic where you could go there, you would talk to the guy. He was really good at what he did, and he knew everything in the store and what you needed. You would kind of describe the situation, and he would give you what you needed. You go into Home Depot, and you're going to be dealing with someone who has never done construction. Maybe they're in the plumbing department, but has never done plumbing in their life. They're not masters, really, almost of anything. And sadly, we get rid of a lot of masters. We basically become things that push, that give basic information, but are not masters. We don't really know what we're talking about. And that is very dehumanizing, depowering, and it is not expressing the uniqueness of the individual. One of the things that Aquarius is really keyed in on is the ability to express the uniqueness of the individual, something that its polar does in the Leo. It incorporates it into the whole, where it doesn't allow it to be lost. And that's one of the things. Aquarius is the dynamic that says the uniqueness of Leo, the specialty of Virgo, isn't lost to the Capricorn molding into sort of just what society wants. The uniqueness is expressed, and it becomes its own unique thing within the society. So its place is found, its uniqueness is found, and how it operates within the collective, within the whole. This is a very strong part of the Aquarius dynamic. So over the next 2 decades, each of us is called to really identify and deepen our unique mastery. What are you good at? What is your specialty? What's there? You contribute it within networks that respect craft and autonomy. This is the framework we are headed towards. All right? You reject systems that confuse convenience with progress and consumption with creation. Again, I mean, we're seeing now with all the AI tools, all the things that it can create. But you know when it's AI because it has a similar look, okay? It's not that unique. It can be very specialized in some ways, but it's not unique. There's something within the human being that is able to create something very unique, something special, something that has life inside of it, that it's not just dead. So again, it's not to put down the tools. It's not to say they're all, oh, these are all bad. It's to say, what is the framework for humanity? And so right now, we're going through a time of examining what that framework is and what's going to be more effective. We're not just passing through an astrological transit. We're participating in the rebirth of how humanity organizes itself. That's what the next 20 years is. The goal is not to destroy structure, but to evolve it into something that can hold both the individual and the collective, both the innovator and continuity, both the eagle and the sky. The question Pluto and Aquarius asks of our civilization is, can we build a temple worthy of every artisan, where every specialized stone is honored and the whole is stronger for it? Can we make a place for everybody and their unique gifts and contributions to a society? The next 20 years will be our answer. What are we going to do? Does everyone want to be a part of that? No. A lot of people will still want the shadow, okay? They look at a collective as, we all believe this, we all think this way. There is no uniqueness. There is no individuality. We all have to think the same way. We all have to speak the same way. We all have to do the same things. That's a unity based on force, based on conformity, not a unity based on life. And what we're looking at in Aquarius, it wants unity based in life. It wants unity to exist where you find your place in the hierarchical order, in the order of energy, in the order of the universe, in the order of the world. You do have a place where you do fit with your order. You were not made by accident. You're not, oh, the earth has produced you accidentally. It did not. It produced you because it needs you to be you, not to be somebody else, not to just be a conformer that fits into a box, but it wants you to be your unique self in the proper order of where you're to be. This is what we hope to be able to create over the next 20 years is to begin these frameworks that begin to change not only America, but the world. This is my view of Pluto and Aquarius in the next 20 years. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to ask. You know, I'll respond pretty much to anything and everything. I'm just trying to be me, okay? That's all I'm doing, and all I want for other people is for them to be who they are. So this is a little bit of what synergistic astrology is. I'm Christopher Pridham. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you just ride this energetic wave to its fullness. Be you.